The House Judiciary Committee was questioning Jeff Sessions, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, as part of its investigation into possible Russian meddling in the 2016 election. And this was an interesting hearing considering some of the information that we now know regarding some campaign volunteers, campaign staffers, and the communications they had with the Russians. So of course, there's the Paul Manafort angle. There's the fact that George Papadopoulos has admitted guilt, although we don't know the full details of what he has and hasn't admitted to. Now, what is Sessions' take on this? Is he changing his story a little bit from previous hearings and the previous testimony that he has given? First, let's take a look at his answers regarding Papadopoulos and Paige Carter.
I would like to address recent news reports regarding meetings during the campaign attended by George Papadopoulos and Carter Page, among others. Frankly, I had no recollection of this meeting until I saw these news reports. I do now recall that the March 2016 meeting at the Trump Hotel that Mr. Papadopoulos attended, but I have no clear recollection of the details of what he said at that meeting. After reading his account and to the best of my recollection, I believe that I wanted to make clear to him that he was not authorized to represent the campaign with the Russian government or any other foreign government for that matter. But I did not recall this event, which occurred 18 months before my testimony of a few weeks ago. And I would gladly have reported it had I remembered it, because I pushed back against his suggestion that I thought may have been improper. As for Mr. Page, while I do not challenge his recollection, I have no memory of his presence at a dinner at the Capitol Hill Club or any passing conversation he may have had with me as he left the dinner.
So we just showed you a small portion of the hearing, and for those of you who don't have the time to sit and watch the full hearing, I can sum it up for you by letting you know that Jeff Sessions responded to every question pertaining to Russia, because Republicans didn't want to ask about Russia. They asked about a variety of other random things with, I do not recall, I do not recall. He doesn't recall anything. He doesn't recall anything from a year and a half ago. If you can't remember things, significant things from a year and a half ago, I mean, can you remember anything? It was so obvious to me that, and then he would pretend like he didn't understand questions that were incredibly clear, and he didn't want to answer them. So
maybe he's going to go with the Alzheimer's defense too. So look, come on, guys, get a load of the obvious, on its face, absurd argument that Sessions is making. Now he says, "I don't recall having a conversation with Papadopoulos. I did not recall having a conversation with Papadopoulos telling him to not put us in touch with the Russians. But now I do recall it, and I was awesome. And I told him, definitely don't have that conversation with the Russians." Wait, you didn't remember it at all before. Now that we discovered that you were in the midst of all these conversations about the Trump campaign talking to the Russians, now that you do recall it, you recall it with great clarity and emphasis, and how you almost yelled at him to not get involved with the Russians.
Yeah, Jeff Sessions is a good guy.
Yeah, now your memory's crystal clear, right? Now, come on. You either remember it or you don't remember it. You can't, what he's trying to do is get credit, not get in trouble because he lied about not remembering things, because he just didn't want to talk about all the Russian connections, because there was a lot of Russian connections, right? Yeah. And he wants to get credit for that and get credit for, now I told him not to go though, and I told him not to put Trump and Putin in. He could get credit for the second thing, if he admitted, yeah, I lied to you guys. Of course I remember that conversation. I'm the one who told him to make sure that Trump and Putin didn't meet up.
Now he explains why it's common for people like him to not recall certain things. Let's listen to his reasoning in the next video.
My answers have not changed. I've always told the truth, and I have answered every question as I understood them to the best of my recollection, as I will continue to do today. All you have been in campaigns, let me just suggest, but most of you have not participated in a presidential campaign, and none of you had a part in the Trump campaign. And it was a brilliant campaign, I think, in many ways, but it was a form of chaos every day from day one. We traveled sometimes to several places in one day. Sleep was in short supply, and I was still a full-time senator with a very full schedule. During this year, I've spent close to 20 hours testifying before Congress. Before today, I have been asked to remember details from a year ago, such as who I saw on what day, in what meeting, and who said what to when. In all of my testimony, I can only do my best to answer your questions as I understand them and to the best of my memory. But I will not accept and reject accusations that I have ever lied. That is a lie. So as I said before, my story has never changed. I've always told the truth, and I've answered every question to the best of my recollection, and I will continue to do so today.
But we know that's not true because you recused yourself, because you said that you had never met with the Russians when Al Franken asked you about it in your confirmation hearings. Then we found out that you met with the Russians several times. Then you said, well, we didn't talk about policy. Then you admitted that you did talk about policy, and then you recused yourself. So you clearly lied in the beginning about meeting with the Russians.
No, Cenk, he didn't lie. It's just that initially he had no recollection. Now, it's just very, it's a coincidence that I conveniently have no recollection when it doesn't suit me to have any recollection, right? Like, that's the thing that's amazing. Like, and that's his strategy, and it's worked so far. He just says he doesn't remember, then he gets called out and he's like, oh yeah, now I remember, but hey, I was so tired and I was a full-time senator, because senators work real hard, right? With all of the staffers that they have reading the legislation for them and briefing them on things. I mean, the senators have gotten a lot done in the US lately.
But
anyway.
To be fair to the Republicans, when Clinton said that he was also tired, and that's why lying under oath was no big deal, the Republicans were like, you're right, you're free to go. So Sessions, if you believe, like the Republicans, that what Clinton did was outrageous, lying under oath about an affair, this is lying under oath about things that involve the government and working with a foreign government to perhaps influence our elections. Way more important. This Sessions should be gone. If not, I am expecting apologies for all Republicans who pursued impeachment, because now they apparently think that perjury is no big deal. Help us build independent media together. TYTnetwork.com/join.